Slash, I do buckaroos. How the heck are you? I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer for the purpose of this video. And classic cocktails. We're staying with the theme of classic cocktails for another one. This is the RDR Neeley Sweet Thumped Rye. Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey at 110.8. Single barrel strength, again at 110.8, 55.4 proof. Reading a little bit from the back here, most rye whiskeys have traditionally been cooked and distilled the same way since Prohibition. Our 11th generation distiller, Royce Neeley, operates outside the confines of the norm. He cooks our rye at lower temperatures and utilizes a proprietarily charged copper thumper on the third pot distillation, bringing out the sweeter notes of the rye grain. Distilled and hand-bottled by the Neeley family distillery, Sparta, Kentucky. I went there by accident, and I gotta tell you, everything I had there was amazing. At the time, I thought I was spending too much money, but now I wish I'd have bought more, because, man, their stuff is amazing. We're 65% rye. Doesn't tell me what else is in here. Triple distilled, non-chill filters, sweet mashed. Barrel number 7, I can't tell if that's a 9 or a 4. I'm going to say 793, barrel size 25. Custom seasoned toasted oak and charred oak, aged for 44 months. So we're just shy of 4 years old here. This stuff is insane. It really ought to be drank neat, in all honesty. But I wanted this cocktail to be as good as possible. So I wanted to start with the best possible rye, using or making a very close traditional old-fashioned. Tom, that's not an old-fashioned. There's no ice in it. You're right, there is no ice in it. But the truth is, it doesn't need to be. I think over the last, well, you know, it's become customary to put an ice cube in an old-fashioned. Although traditionally, that wasn't the case. Most cocktails of their time were served straight up, much like a Manhattan. And you can find traditional recipes for an old-fashioned served just like this in a coupe, just like you would a Manhattan. Which is why I personally like it better this way, because I don't want that ice in the cocktail. Term is straight up. I've noticed a lot of, not to pick on the generation, because terms change over the years. A lot of us old guys are set in our ways, so we use terms that younger folks don't use. But I've noticed I've had to explain the term straight up to a lot of millennials and younger. I had this, I did this version with a friend one day. I was making a cocktail. We were kind of having a virtual chat from his place and my place. And when I did it my way, he says, well, I've never had a old-fashioned room temperature. I said, no, it's not room temperature. It's straight up, which means I've chilled it well, but I'm not leaving ice in the glass. In this case, I did shake it. I'm not worried about bruising the rye. So this is a version. I tried to get as classic as possible. But I did take maybe one liberty. I'm not using an orange peel because the garnish can't change. So I'm using a scorched candied orange. So I had a candied orange that I took my torch to and scorched it to bring those sugars out. And I am using one dark cherry in there, or brandied cherry. This one happens to be. Man, that is delicious. And I'm telling you, that rye is just so insanely good, man. It is incredible. I hadn't drank it for a little bit. I really was loving it so much when I first got home from vacation that I drank it about to half. So then I said, okay, let's put that back. So I haven't touched it for about a month until now. But we were right around the time of Thanksgiving, so I figured it's okay. It's okay, Tom. It's okay. There's only that much left. I really wish, I mean, I bought that and their Kentucky Straight Bourbon at Cask, and they were both $40 each, which would have made them 84 750. So I bought well, they only had them in this size, so I bought the rye and the bourbon. But gosh, I wish I'd have bought 2 of each now. If I'd have realized how good they were at the time, I'd have bit the bullet and spent the extra money, because oh my gosh, they are insanely good. I could have blown my complete vacation budget right at that one distillery. Everything was just so good. But it was an unscheduled stop for my wife and I. We just got caught in a storm, traffic delays. We were about an hour and a half or so behind at that point. But we need to stop and get off the road for some gas and, you know, shake the nerves off, because it was a rather intense hour and a half there in traffic. Anyways, so we stopped at a gas station, but my wife had seen a sign that said Neeley Family Distillery, so she asked if I wanted to go, and initially I said no. I mean, the truth is I did want to go, but we were, like I said, we were already so far behind. So now we need to get to our destination. She says, well, to be honest with you, I can use a break. So, okay. So I went in there, and she kind of rested for about 30 minutes. They were busy doing some tasting, so I didn't really get to talk to anybody, so I kind of meandered around and looked at some products. And I settled on these 2, plus 100 proof of Papa's Birthday Barrel, it was called. It was signed. It was the main reason I bought the bottle. I said, oh, what the hell. So I picked it up. And all 3 products are just amazing. And quite frankly, I wish I'd have bought more products. Everything was so good, man. Now, I have a lot of good whiskeys here, but because I was making, or trying to make, a very classic old-fashioned, right? Very true to old-fashioned. So I went with the rye. The straight rye whiskey here. Because I have a couple high rye bourbons that I thought would work, but, again, because I wanted to go right true to the original cocktails, why I used a rye. So anyways, I digress. Gosh, this is just so delicious. So again, I've used 3 ounces of the rye, 1 ounce of a classic simple. Just raw sugar, water, equal parts of each. Nothing, because typically I like to flavor my simples, or I'll do an orange zest simple for some cocktails. But again, I wanted to kind of recreate as close to classic as humanly possible, so I just used raw sugar, water, equal parts. So this is kind of a no-frills cocktail, and the bitters that I used. Oh, I thought I had them right here, but I'm not seeing them. I used some smoked orange bitters. Anyway. I digress. Oh man, that's a nice cocktail. Yeah, you know, I've been doing some shows for holiday cocktails, but sometimes those classics, you know, kind of weave their way into the holidays. You want that classic cocktail with that classic meal. It doesn't necessarily have to be fancy. That's why I wanted to do a martini and an old fashioned, and I will do a Manhattan as well at some point. But I wanted to do this one first. Now, rye. So, rye is traditional with an old-fashioned and a Manhattan. However, well, here's the however. You can find a lot of early recipes for a Manhattan using bourbon. That's why I don't mind using bourbon in a Manhattan. But if I do use a bourbon, I want it to be a traditional bourbon that uses rye as a secondary, or typically a very high rye bourbon. This Rieger's that I have here is just gorgeous. It is only 56% corn and 30% rye. I mean, that is the definition of a high rye bourbon right there, where they really kept that corn down to give it a solid rye presence. Using a classic coupe. This is, again, a glass my wife found at a thrift store. I love these elegant glasses. I don't know if they're worth anything, to be honest with you. And I typically shy away from pretentious, but when I'm making a cocktail like this, or Manhattan specifically, I really want a glass that showcases the cocktail. Now, my dad was a bourbon drinker, but when I say that, there was only 3 whiskeys I've ever seen him drink. It was Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, and we can argue whether that's bourbon or not at another point, and Wild Turkey. But Dad's drink was always, and I've never seen him waver from this, or never saw him waver from this, I guess I should say, was whiskey and water. And when I say whiskey and water, what I mean is he would take a glass, fill it up with ice. You know, at the times everybody had those funky, you know, little, not quite half moon, but you know what I'm talking about, ice cubes in their fridge, right? So he'd fill that up with ice, and then pour bourbon until there was only about this much room left in the glass, and turn that tap. There's a splash of tap water, man. Of course, I don't think our tap water was great at home, but nevertheless, that's what Dad drank, and I never saw him drink anything else, to be honest. He wasn't, oh, you know what, sounds good today, a martini. No, that's all he drank ever. And it was only those 3 whiskeys. I'd never seen him stray from those 3. You found it. Talking to my wife there for a second. I had to move something. She got it in the freezer because it got away. It got away earlier. Anyways, I digress. Let me focus on you and finish up this cocktail. So I have got what I feel is a classic old-fashioned. Some of you may disagree because there's no ice in the glass. But for me, what's important is the ingredients, right? So I've got a very high-quality rye. Neeley Sweet Thumped Rye, Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey at 110.8. The thing is, the lower the proof at Cask, the cleaner your whiskey is going to be. So I understand what they're doing here. And man, this stuff is just incredible. So 3 ounces of that, a homemade simple. I used, again, equal parts water to raw sugar. And yes, I'm not using that white sugar. You're not going to get a clean simple. And then smoked orange bitters is what I have in here. You use the bitters of choice. So some folks want to use a classic Angostura. Usually for an old-fashioned, folks like to use an orange bitters, and I've used these Regan's orange for the most part, but I did have some smoked orange, so that's why I used that in this. So there you go. I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer, Whiskey Evangelist, prolific whiskey drinker. Gosh, that's delicious. That's just good, man. I don't care who you are. Prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor wisdom, man. All around good guy. Sláinte.